Hello, dwellers of the internet, PlatSkull here again. Recently, after playing through the Painted World of Ariandel and Dark Souls 3, it got me thinking about cold environments in video games and what they communicate to the brain as you progress through them. I find that the aesthetic of a snowy world often gives you a little bit more of an incentive to survive because it gives off this appearance of a place of environmental harshness. It has the look of a place that isn't going to be forgiving if you were to run out of food or if you didn't have basic survival skills or the instinct and the will to live to fight off the enemies that may reside in the area. And as I was progressing through this world, it just kept reminding me of the appeal of that aesthetic and how you actually feel as you're moving from one area to the next, defeating enemy after enemy, that you are making an effort to survive and that you are sort of more vulnerable in a place like this. It gives this off the sense that you aren't necessarily in complete control of your surroundings because you're at the mercy of nature. Snow and cold and the breeze that is coming into the landscape that you have to deal with isn't something that's humanly generated. It's not something that you can account for and plan for that is going to be absolute in the way that it can be conquered through an exact plan. It's going to be something that can happen spur of the moment. It isn't anything caused by any creature with any form of autonomy. It's completely an environmental effect that can happen with any amount of randomness and unpredictability. Even today, we have people who have jobs that are meant to predict the weather and relay that information to us, but they can't find a specific focal point to be 100% exact with this information. All it is an educated prediction based on weather patterns, meaning when one event happens in the weather, another one that relates to it is likely to happen, and the likelihood can increase or decrease depending on the event, but in any case, there is no exact causation from one event to the next that we can have 100% certainty about, which is what the game utilizes when putting you in a snow world. It gives off this sense of danger that you're in a place where you have to attempt to put forth more than the average amount of effort to survive in it. Now, combatively, it's even affected to a certain extent because this is a mountainous area. Not only is it snowing and your vision is blocked slightly from some areas in the distance that are clouded by the snow, which is causing a fog effect, which adds to the aesthetic appeal of it, but it's the fact that you're in a mountainous range with uneven ground, so you have to plan for enemies attacking you out of nowhere from up above or down below that you wouldn't have a visual sense of when you're traversing the area. So you have to be ready for randomness in any respect. Randomness from the weather, randomness from the enemies, randomness from the terrain. It's basically tossing you into a chaotic and harsh landscape that you have to find a way to cope with, and it's something that sticks out. It's very cool. It's something that a snow world can use to its advantage. Now, what can be bad about this, what is detriment to it, is that some people might just find this type of landscape annoying. Some people might find this type of obstacle that has to be overcome in a game just a complete waste of time and just a bothersome type of level with that kind of design. It's similar to the underwater worlds. Nobody likes the underwater worlds because of their mechanics and the way that they're designed. There's always a different system of movement that's implemented into a game that nobody wants to deal with because they're used to playing the game a specific way already, and they've already gotten attached to moving their character in a way that they've adapted to however long they've been playing the game for. And I guess there is a certain similarity that can be compared to a random interjected type of world, but then again, that can be said for any interjected type of world, like a lava world, a sand world, basically just worlds with different environmental theming. And I think that there is specific benefits and drawbacks to be mentioned about each type of these worlds that I think people may overlook from time to time. Like for instance, in a sand world, they may add mechanics of quicksand to drown you quicker, to just put another obstacle that you didn't have before into the game. And in the case of this snow world, it's the fact that your vision is blocked from the distant fog, that you can't see enemies through. The fog and the hilltops that sort of disguise enemies. They're also, to take advantage of the environment even further, some enemies are kneeling in corners and tight spots around these corners that conceals them from sight due to their shadows or shadows of the rocks and coverage of the terrain. And this isn't necessarily a negative. I mean, I can completely understand why people would find it annoying because it is something different. And the bottom line when it comes to variability in a game is that people don't like different, or are more likely not going to like the mechanics straying away from what they have already gotten used to in the game. They want to learn the basic functionality of the character and the landscape automatically, get past it as soon as possible, and then just play the game. But for me, and for a lot of other players out there, differentiation and expansions on the different types of environment, adding different types of challenges that have to be coped with and adapted to from time to time, only adds to the variability and the kinds of enjoyment that you can get out of the game. For me, it's exciting to see a different landscape like a snow world where your survival instinct is increased and you're forced to adapt to this new type of environment. And in all honesty, it isn't even that hard. I mean, that's subjective, of course, depending on your skill level, but there isn't so much different from the base game mechanics in this type of landscape to where you're playing a different game altogether. You're simply traversing an environment where it's a little bit harder to kill enemies because your vision is restricted and there's fucking hills everywhere. Not that big of a deal. Still very cool to try to learn to adapt to, and very cool to make your way through. There's also a benefit to this that lies in the landscape design that isn't just the hilltops. It's the fact that it has a bit of a confusing terrain to it. It's not exactly maze-like, but there are alternate paths that can be taken, routes that go up and down the mountain that can be taken advantage of, or just completely overlooked and left out of the way and never seen from again if you only play through the game once. I mean, granted, on multiple playthroughs, like through New Game Pluses, over and over again, you would experience every piece of the land, or if you're just an exploring type of gamer, you would see them anyway, which is also awesome. But just the fact that you can get through the game without ever having seen a certain path, or ever having taken advantage of a certain route that may have led you, not necessarily a better way, but just a different way, is something that sticks out and is very cool. To me, at least. A variability in experience boasts world expansion, and it boasts world size in general. Just the fact that someone can go through and experience one thing, and another person can go through and experience something completely different, yet they're playing the exact same game, just taking alternate routes. Anyway, point is that a twisted and multi-pathed and multi-routed landscape not only encourages exploration, but if you're not an explorer and you're just taking one route all the way through, it gives the sensation almost immediately that you have gotten lost in a certain sense, and that this world is bigger than you, and that you're not exactly sure when you're going to get to that next bonfire or that next safe zone. You could encounter 1,000,000 enemies for all you know and have no chance of survival when upon taking this one route. And that gives a lot of incentive to try to survive as best as possible. You may increase your cautiousness when battling certain enemies. You may increase recklessness if you just panic and you're one of those people who doesn't like to be lost so much that you will automatically go crazy and just start hacking everything in your way, or run through the entire environment without facing any enemies because you don't trust yourself to be able to beat them. It all comes down to the variability and experience, which Dark Souls is extremely good at creating. But besides Dark Souls in itself, a snow world that is designed in this specific way, where vision is clouded and the terrain is multifaceted, and that allows you to take different routes and make use of different paths, use the landscape to your advantage, and cope with your disadvantages. It just boasts its ability to help the player have fun, I believe, and I'm having fun when I go through a world like this. And as I was progressing through this world, I noticed a few of these advantages and disadvantages that people may like or may not, and I just felt like talking about that for a little bit. Anyways, that about does it for this ramble. I just wanted to talk about some Snow World for a little bit, specifically the Painted World of Ariandel, because this is an awesome place, and the designers of Dark Souls do their job well in implementing it in exactly the way they should. They make the best possible use of this type of world in a game that I've seen in a while. So that's it. I'll see you guys in the next one.